Hi, my name is Dr. Liz Combs, and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Studies here at the Department of Dietetics and Human Nutrition and part of the UKDHN Performance Nutrition and Body Composition Laboratory. I'm also a registered and licensed dietitian, and we're going to answer a few questions that you might have after receiving your services at the Performance Nutrition and Body Composition Lab. One question that we often receive is, what's the importance of body composition? So now that you have this information, what is important about it and why do we care about this information? When we think about measuring our body, we think about several different anthropometric measurements. We have height and weight, very, very common ones that we've had measured since we were younger. We have BMI, which is going to be calculated body mass index. And while this is a valid screening tool, it's not necessarily a diagnostic tool. And so it gives you a number, but it doesn't tell you that much about your body composition, how your body is made up. So the next step that we can look at is our waist circumference. It's a helpful marker for disease. For example, individuals that carry excess visceral fat in their abdomen or in their midsection can experience more metabolic changes, like insulin resistance or high cholesterol or hormonal imbalances. So waist circumference does help provide a little bit more information about how fat is distributed and can be a marker for disease, but still it is not looking as deep as when we look at lean body mass versus fat mass, which is what a lot of we can do through our body composition assessment. And so we're going to look at our idea of fat mass versus lean body mass, and lean body mass can include muscle, bones, organs, and more. So when we think about our physical assessments, those ones that we kind of just spoke about, those do give us one side of the picture. The other side of the picture can include other physiological assessments, doing a physical exam, going and having your annual physical with a healthcare provider. Also looking at things like your health history, or even measuring your resting metabolic rate, which we can also do with a lab. And so getting that actually measured is much better than just estimating it based upon calculations, because there can be a lot of factors that impact it. So these are some other things that we can use to assess health, to say, why do we care? What is that importance of body composition? So one thing that we see often is body mass index. And so if we calculate this using our height and our weight, and you can find many calculators online, we have these different classifications for screening or for areas where we might see a little bit of a red flag and we want to explore deeper. But again, these can be off on different population groups, most notably athletes. It can skew to the higher side when really it's just excess muscle rather than excess fat. So body composition can tell us more than that. And these are the classifications for BMI, and we don't want to get these confused with the classifications for body fat percentage norms for men and for women. And so this is ACE's body fat percent norms. And you can see that we have women here in the middle and men over on the right-hand side. And there's certain levels of essential fat that we have to have things function normally within our body, most notably impacting our hormones. And so we have certain levels of essential fat that we, need to function properly. Then, as you can see, we go down from those that are considered maybe more high performance athletes, having lower body fat percent, those that maybe are into fitness, maybe not necessarily as an athlete, but move their body, find a lot of joy in movement, can have a little bit more moderate levels of body fat and still be in a very healthy range. Then we have the acceptable description. And you can see for women, it's 25% body fat to 31% and 18% to 24% for men. And then they do use the category description of obese for women that have a body fat percent higher than 32 or a men higher than 25%. So again, these are just great screening tools, not necessarily diagnostic tools, to where if something does stick out to you, you could talk more with your healthcare provider about what that might mean. So why do we measure it? There's several things that we could use with this information. First, we might want to look at concerns of the health of an athlete or the health of a person. Are there disease risk factors? Are there markers that we would want to then pay attention or do further screening on? It gives us some information. Two, we can help determine contributions to performance or general well-being. So if we have a higher body fat percentage. Is it going to impede our well-being or our speed? And then finally, to best prepare an individual for sports specific performance. So going just from general wellness on to actual athletes in sports, different sports require different levels of ideal body fat and body composition. And so if we want to best prepare an individual for a sports specific performance, we might have them work with healthcare providers to try to modify their body fat composition in one way, shape, or form. Now, it's really important to know that these reasons are not independent. In most cases, the body composition is measured for many different reasons, but it does help us move this going forward. It is important to know that just like any other screening tool, there are a lot of things to consider and not just look at that number and be done. So the reference values are typically impacted by gender, like we saw on that previous slide. Females do need more body fat percentage than males. It can be impacted by age and also by activity level. In general, men have a lower body fat percentage than women. And in general, fat content increases with age. So this is not irreversible. I know that's a double negative, but it can be impacted. It can be reversed, but just naturally body content increases with age, or fat content. And then lastly, I do really want to point out something quite important. There definitely are essential levels of fat that are needed for all vital organs and for certain sex-specific hormones to function properly. And so there is such thing as having too little or too low levels of body fat. And both ends of the spectrum can be harmful to performance and to also health and well-being. And so we do want to figure out, is there an optimal kind of ideal level that we could look at a little bit differently? We're not going to either end of that spectrum. So we really want to make sure that we don't get too low of levels of body fat, because it can impact hormone levels and impair bone development and have some fairly serious consequences as well. So 2 more slides here as we talk about this topic. When we talk specifically about athletes, there are different needs and different characterizations that we need for different types of athletes. So strength and power or endurance. So power athletes typically have more substantial muscle mass and relatively heavier body weight to get that power ratio. Whereas endurance athletes tend to be lighter and lower body fat percentage because they're moving their body through space for longer periods of time and their body's trying to be efficient. And then most sports do require a combination of power and endurance. And so we kind of need a balance there. And for some individuals, reducing excess body fat could improve cardiovascular endurance because, again, you would be moving less mass through space. But we definitely don't want to go to any extreme to where we would also compromise our strength, our power, and our well-being. Lastly, the body composition can have a contribution to performance. And so we really want to do a look at assessment of lean body mass. It's one of the best uses of body composition measures in healthy individuals because we want to make sure that athletes have adequate muscle mass for performance and for their sport-specific performance. So you would want to talk to somebody about that, what that could be for your sport if you are an athlete. And then lastly, we do want to consider periodic assessment of lean body mass. We do want to look at it over time, not just one single snapshot. And especially if somebody was going to be able to work with exercise physiologists, trainers, athletic trainers, registered dietitians to try to achieve more optimal body composition, we would want to, again, look at it over time and not just as one snapshot. So ideally, we would look at about a 3-month time frame to come back and get reassessed. So I hope that this has been helpful to get a better understanding of why we care about body composition and giving you some context on what these numbers mean. Thanks.